Part 2, Empowering Self-Worth. Welcome to Part 2 of our transformative journey, where we will dive into empowering self-worth. In this segment, we explore the profound significance of recognizing our inherent value, cultivating self-worth, and standing confidently in our authentic self, as we'll embark on this essential path with practices designed to elevate our self-worth. The significance of self-worth. Self-worth is the foundation of a fulfilled and authentic life. It influences our decisions, relationships, and boundaries. Acknowledging our inherent value enables us to build confidence, as self-worth fosters unwavering self-assurance. It also fosters healthy relationships, as it leads to respectful connections with others, while also establishing boundaries, as it empowers us to protect our well-being. It helps us pursue goals, as self-worth propels us towards our ambitions. And lastly, it allows us to embrace authenticity, as it lets us live aligned with our values and desires. So basically, these aspects that were just mentioned cannot even be present in our experience unless we have self-worth. We have to embody that self-worth within ourselves so that we can indeed feel confident in ourselves, in our actions, in our doing, in our creations. Because in order for us to be truly confident, we have to feel worthy that we are capable of doing so. We have to not only believe in ourselves, but we also have to learn how to present ourselves with the embodiment of that worthiness that we do believe ourselves to be. So that is basically the practice that we're getting into here, is how to embody that internal power within, so that in that doing so, we step into the sequential elements of that empowerment, which in this lesson would be self-empowerment through the action of self-belief and self-worth, as we're reaching here now. Practices for cultivating self-worth. For the first one, we have self-compassion. Treat yourself with kindness and understanding, counteracting self-criticism with self-compassion. Now, I understand that we are just getting into these words and languages now, that people are getting more into the hype and into the phase that we are all transitioning into collectively, of healing and doing self-work and going to therapy and learning how to self-reflect and becoming self-aware, so that those wounds and those elements that made us in the past accept and tolerate the bare minimum of everything, and tolerate and enable toxic behaviors from others and ourselves, they're slowly fading away as we become more self-aware of ourselves, our nature, our potential, our value, our worth, right? And in doing so, we are doing practices like this course that you're taking participation in currently at this moment. So it is very crucial for us to learn how to have compassion, not only for others, but primarily for ourselves in this process, because this is a brand new endeavor that we are all collectively experiencing. It is something that if you are in the front of the line in doing so, you are stepping ahead of the game, because you are doing the work that's necessary for the future versions of ourselves. And therefore, hopefully, with the work you do here, you can assist others in their own transition. But understanding that self-compassion is necessary, because it is a process that needs our full consistency, determination, persistence, and belief in our ability and capability of getting it done and doing the work that's necessary to reach that pivotal moment in ourselves, in our values, in our desires, in our dream life, in our self-mastery, where we are self-regulated, where we are fully in control and the master of our own mind and our own thoughts and our own emotions, so that we don't allow and give our power away to anything outside of us, which in fact is only aspects of ourselves that we are not yet conscious of, that are within us resisting the new version of ourselves. So it will be a process. It would be a push and pull of the old version of who we are or were, and the new version that we are trying to embody and become. So for the next practice for cultivating self-worth is affirmations of self-worth. So develop affirmations reinforcing your values, your deservingness, love, and respect. So if we want to, for example, receive that from our external world, from those that we interact with and those that we have our experiences with, we must first start with self. We have to learn how to give ourselves that reinforcement that we need so that we ourselves feel valuable to ourselves, so that we feel that we do deserve it. What is it that we desire and vision for ourselves? So that we love ourselves enough to set the proper boundaries to keep ourselves safe and comfortable and in alignment with what is it that we truly want, while maintaining standards that maintain those values so that we can be in the energy of self-respect, right? So everything kind of correlates with itself. So the best way to have a better understanding of what this looks like is whatever you notice that you want others to do for you so that you can feel valued, so that you can feel worthy, so that you can feel important, so that you can feel loved and respected. Whatever you are noticing that others are not doing for you is indeed but a reflection of what you are not doing for yourself. So this awareness, when you are not used to being aware and observing your experience to such degree, might be very triggering at first. But once you start reflecting and collecting your own structure and patterns and behaviors and thoughts and emotional states that you're constantly sitting in, you will quickly realize that everyone you experience to some degree is highlighting or bringing into your awareness an aspect of yourself that you yourself are not doing for yourself. And once we get in the hang of it and start these practices and the tools and start to perceive our experience differently, what happens is we start reframing the way we see the world around us, right? We stop getting offended and taking things personally because we start to realize that there might be a slight possibility that this is reflecting an aspect within myself that I myself am neglecting in myself, that I myself am not respecting or valuing or believing in or seeing myself worthy of achieving that goal that I really want, but I don't feel that I'm quite ready, or I don't feel that I'm quite knowledgeable or suitable, or I don't look the part, or I don't feel that I know everything. You see, these restrictions that we give ourselves are all coming from the lack of self-worth. But we don't see it like that. We just think we're being logical and rational about life. But in reality, if you haven't tried it, how do you even know if it's possible? If you have already stopped yourself before you even started, right? So this is something that I catch many people do. It's like they start with a doubt and they make that doubt start a narrative, a story in their minds, and that story becomes a belief, and that belief restricts them. But what if we reverse it and First, start with the self-belief that's going to empower us, so that in that belief we start the story that we need to hear so that we can affirm our self-worth and our self-belief in self, right? So that in those practices of reversing that test, we start to step into the motions and the actions and the behaviors and the thoughts that are actually going to serve us in a positive manner. Bringing me into the next one, that is mindful self-reflection. Engage in mindful self-reflection to understand your strengths, values, and unique qualities. You see, sometimes we live in a culture that we all just want to belong and fit in and be relevant, right? And I understand that because I myself have been there. I am teaching from a position of knowing exactly what is being experienced, which is why I do what I do. Because everything that I am teaching to overcome is something that I myself had to do for myself first. So that I am coming from my own personal experience, so that I am coming from my own wisdom collected through my own embodiment of those emotional states and interactions and beliefs and restrictions that I myself went through. And I started realizing that all these techniques and practices were what got me over the wall or barrier, if you want to say. Because I was able to reframe my mind, reset my mind, and subconsciously dive into those aspects of myself that I was completely unconscious of, making it conscious to myself so that I can correct it, recalibrate it, and rewrite it, right? So I can rewrite my story from the inside out. So when we are mindful and we are able to self-reflect, what happens is we are no longer stuck in the emotional charge of the experience that triggers our self-doubts and fears and insecurities and stuff. We are automatically stepping into, what am I learning here? What do I need to pay attention to? What is my reaction? What is my trigger? Why is that my trigger? Where did this start from? Where is the origin of this belief? Is this something that I myself created because of an experience that I personally had? Or is this simply a passed down tradition or conditioning or story that was passed down from someone else, right? So when we start to cultivate self-worth, we also have to cultivate the ability to reflect on why is it that we don't feel worthy in the first place, so that we can start from that point of view, from that perspective, and from that emotional state that is anchoring us in that paradigm of not seeing our worth. And when we start seeing our worth and our values and our unique qualities that only make us who we are in our own authentic expression of self, we start to appreciate and embrace it. And therefore we start to become comfortable with it. And when we start to become comfortable with it, we gain that level of confidence that's unapologetically in the expression of that very essence that is expressed through the experience. And when we start seeing that in ourselves, it becomes so easy to see in other people. Because now you're like, oh my God, I love the way that this person does this, or I appreciate this quality of this person, or I see the character in that individual, and I have so much respect for that individual because of the way they carry themselves, because of the way they act and hold up their word. All of these things, you start now paying attention to that in other people as well. So the world is not as dark as it used to, or so negative as it was before, because the beauty that you see in yourself is the beauty you are going to start noticing in others. You see? Everything starts with you. What you see outside of you is only a projection of what you feel and see within yourself. And you'll quickly start noticing that transition and that change. Because if you notice, when you are self-criticizing yourself and judging yourself and thinking you're not good enough for anything, what do you normally do when you look at someone else? You start looking for all the reasons and all the ways that they are not good enough, how they are not doing this, how they can't do that, as you're just projecting. So when you step into the level of true self-awareness and you start experiencing the world from the observer point of view, you quickly start noticing people's insecurities by the way they speak about other people, right? Or the things that they notice in their partners or their family and so on. And you start to realize that that's what they have to work on. So they're telling you without telling you what they need to work on, whether consciously or unconsciously, which might get difficult to, know and act like you don't know kind of thing. But anyway, I digress. So for the next one, we're going to go into celebrate achievements. Recognize successes as proof of your worthiness. So sometimes when we're starting, we have to pay attention or remember or be in the acknowledgement of all those moments when we did do what we said we were going to do, where we did complete the tasks, where we did achieve our goals, where we did step into our dreams. That could be anything from I finished and I graduated college or high school. I was able to master my ability to do a move at the gym, or I finished the song that I wanted to learn in the piano, or I was able to remain composed and poised in an area in my life that in the past, let's say 3 or even a year ago, would have triggered me and I would have reacted completely different. But now, as I learn and I mature and I transition myself into a higher potential of myself, and I heal those aspects of myself that made me act in those impulsive ways, I have now become aware of more of my potential and my capabilities, therefore finding more of my worthiness, right? Because indeed I am worthy. I just couldn't see it before because I was veiled in the glasses of my own distorted beliefs and assumptions and self-doubts and fears and insecurities. But once I started healing those aspects in myself, now I see clearly. I see my weaknesses, but I also see my strengths with the compassion to know that I am just human, having my own unique human experience, that when colliding it all together in its complete totality becomes a beautiful experience to have, right? Now the experience of life becomes more valuable because you know that had you not had those lows, you wouldn't even know what the highs were. So now you're grateful for the experience that showed you what you're capable of, that showed you what you have the potential to do if allowing yourself to do so, because you're gaining self-belief, you're gaining your knowledge of self-worth through the experiences that give you that opportunity, you see. And this is also crucial, which goes into our next one. Connect with supportive people. Surround yourself with those who uplift you, recognize your worth, and offer positive reinforcement. Now, this can be different for everyone, as depending on the circumstances and situations and who you decide to have around you through your process of self-development and self-mastery. This is pretty subjective, right? Because if you are, let's say, introverted and your faith can carry you through the process because you are connected to your own source, right? So you have this faith that is unwavering, therefore everything you need in guidance and the faith that you have in your heart allows you to, surpass any man-made or man support, right? But while having that, let's say, and having supportive people on top of that also assists and helps the process go a lot more smoother. This can also be a slight disclaimer. Understand that every experience that you have in your life is always going to be an experience worth having because it's going to allow you to become aware of aspects of yourself that may or may not be conscious, right? So what do I mean by this? When we get into the higher levels, this is going to be more of a lesson, but for now, I'll give you a glimpse. So as I mentioned before, what we experience in our external reality to some degree is a projection of what's happening within ourselves. So in order for us to become aware of the story, the narratives, the beliefs, the internal thoughts that we are having that may be on automatic and we don't even become aware of them. They might be projected externally in our experience, and someone might say something that at the point of listening, let's say before healing, before doing all this work, you would have taken it offensive, or you would have been triggered by that comment, let's say, and reacted impulsively to it, right? This is our unconscious, impulsive, automated ways of being before we do the work that makes us completely conscious of it. Now, moving forward, after doing some work, after learning how to self-reflect, after doing the practices that you're learning in this course, you now start to become the observer of your experience. And by you becoming the observer of your experience, you're never getting offended. You're never taking it personal. In fact, you are looking at it as, okay, what's the next opportunity for me to self-reflect on what narrative is currently playing in my system? So it's almost like becoming aware of your subconscious system, program, narrative, story, beliefs, whatever you might call it, by seeing what is it that is being projected back to you through an experience. And when you experience these moments, whether through regular interactions with strangers or family members or loved ones or a partnership, right? You might step into different levels of your conscious awareness, right? We're not always going to be in the observer seat, which is why when you step into self-mastery, you are allowing yourself to play the role from different point of views, different positions in the consciousness scale based on the level of awareness that you are receiving that interaction. So let's say, I'm going to give you an example. If you are experiencing an experience or an interaction, and they say a comment that is something that you yourself have told yourself subconsciously, right? And are not fully conscious that you've told yourself this, or it's a belief system that's currently running in the settings of your program. Now someone goes out and says it out loud towards you. So let's say in setting one of the paradigm that allows you to be only at level 1 of consciousness, of your conscious awareness, you're automatically going to be triggered. You're automatically going to get offended, and you will impulsively react to it. And this is where you see a lot of the drama, I call it. The interactions that create drama, that he said, she said, why would you say that? All of that, right? That's level 1 of consciousness, because you are in the embodiment of that experience, because you are allowing the emotional charge that is happening within you, that is truly an alarm system for you, but you are taking it as something that you are, which you are not. But at this level of consciousness, you are getting offended. You take it as, I'm being called a name, or they're trying to insult me, and all of these things, right? So here, you're going to react. Now let's say you go to level 2. You're becoming more aware, but you're still in the in and outs of level 1 and level 2 in transition. But you're in level 2 now. You're becoming more aware. You're becoming more aware because instead of reacting, you are taking a step back, you are reflecting, and you're breathing, and you're allowing yourself some time to process your emotional state at that very moment. So what you're doing is you are reflecting subtly based on what are you feeling. And based on how you feel, you're just going to say, that kind of triggered me. But let me not react, and let me ask them why they asked me that. So you still think at level 2 that the person is saying this to you because they truly believe this of you, because you're not aware that it's a projection of yourself being reflected back to you. So you're asking them, why do you say that? Or why do you feel like that? Or what made you say that? And that's normal. That's actually the right way to go about that, especially at level 2. You're learning how to maneuver yourself through these moments that give you these emotional charges, so that you can become aware of those triggers, of those aspects of yourself that you have to heal. So this is how that would go. It may not be much of a drama. It might be a trigger that kind of remains lingering, and you might have to process later on yourself. Maybe you'll go in and journal and get to the origin of why that bothered you, and why did it trigger you at that moment, and why do you react that way, and you're gonna celebrate the achievement of you being able to compose yourself and become aware that you are indeed maturing in your experience, right? Because you are no longer reacting like you would before, right? When you were maybe in level 1, which in your case might be 1 year ago or 5 years ago or even 10 years ago, right? So you're proud of your progress. So you're becoming aware of your progress, understanding that you could have reacted completely different, but you've come a long way. So you're celebrating yourself. You're acknowledging that. You are reflecting on the emotions that you felt, and you are realizing that you're growing up. So this is what happens in level 2. So let's say we go to level 3. Now the reflection is happening. As soon as it happens, you might not even acknowledge it. You might catch him like, oh, got it, and just not acknowledge it, because acknowledging would just take away too much time and effort and energy that you don't really need, because you're just trying to catch these triggers. It's almost like collecting data. Every time you experience something, you're just collecting as data. You're just like, okay, that happened. And if it's not for a response that's needed, or if it's not for a interaction that's a conversation, and let's say you could not react and completely ignore the fact that it happened and just hold it as data, that's an option. If it's a conversation, more than likely, if it's not an emotional trigger, it won't bother you. It really won't, because let's say you heal that aspect of yourself that would trigger you maybe at level 2, where there was a slight emotional charge that occurred in you, and it may have caused you to be offended at level 1, but at level 2 you didn't really react to the offense, but you might have still felt offended, but you just allowed the emotional charge to remain within you, as you kind of suppressed it, unless you allow yourself to reflect and process and let go in it, and maybe journaling or other practices, right? But at level 3, let's say that you've done enough work on yourself that you already know the work that you've done has allowed you to heal the branches of many aspects of you that would normally be triggered by many things. So instead of being emotionally charged or triggered, it's a moment of indifference. It's just something that just happened. It's just an allowance of the interaction, because it doesn't bother you, because there's no aspect of you that is tied to a belief that resonates with that comment. So at level 3, what you're seeing is, because there is no emotional charge or trigger, all you are doing is becoming aware that there is still remnants of old belief systems running in your system, right? So now you're like, okay, I need to clear out some of that. However way I'm going to go about that is to each his own, right? We all go about different ways that I will teach in higher levels of the course, but for now we're going to keep it settled. I just wanted to give that example, so you have an awareness of how perception is everything in our experience, and it's always going to be based on your level of consciousness, which is why for us to even reach higher levels of consciousness, so that we can be more equipped and self-mastered in our emotion regulation, right? And being in the full authority of our behavior, we have to start from the cultivation of the basics, which is what we're doing now. It's creating the fundamental aspects that are going to plant the seed of the behaviors that, when we start now, are going to flourish and grow into something much greater, therefore allowing us to fully embody the true essence of self-mastery and not an illusion of it. So going back to the connection, right? Understand that everyone is serving us a purpose. And it is not to be so discriminative of who we associate ourselves with. It's just who we connect with on a much deeper level. Let's say you have family you see every now and then that you love dearly, and no one's perfect, but you love your family. So your experience with them is always, hopefully, it's going to be more positive than negative. But it's not. If it's not, and if it's toxic, for example, and they're always putting you down and criticizing you and everything you try to do to pursue more and become more, it's a negative reaction. It's a projection of yourself, but also maybe of them and their own beliefs. Because understand that, yes, we get to experience aspects within ourselves that reflect back to us. But sometimes these are projections that are coming from individuals and their lack mindset, or their lack of self-worth, or their lack of self-belief, right? Which is another example. Which is why I'm giving disclaimers, because I want to make sure that we have a clarity on what supportive looks like and what it doesn't. We have to also understand that sometimes certain connections, it is not to say that they have ill intention, and sometimes they do, but it is not to say that they always have ill intention. But you don't want to feed and give your energy to that belief system that, oh, everyone's against me, everyone hates me, because that's going to put you in a disempowerment. That's not going to serve you. Don't entertain it. And if certain people put you in that position of mindset, remove yourself. Because if you haven't mastered yourself enough to place yourself where you want to be so that you can remain there, as they can maneuver you and mix you up and take you out of character or take you out of your own position, then you need to remove yourself until you're capable and ready to attain that stability within yourself, right? And this is going to be, for everyone, it's going to be different, but this is something that you have to become aware of your level of tolerance of certain situations. So I'm going to put this as an example. If someone says, oh, how are you going to do this because you're going to need this, right? Instead of supporting you, they're putting doubt in front of you. And they don't believe that you can do something, right? And that's natural, because also people are seeing it as if they were in your shoes. They're seeing what their possibilities would be. And this is the fears and the insecurities and the self-doubt that they would have upon their own experience if it was them in my shoes, right? So I understand that. I'm not getting offended. I'm not saying, oh, you don't support me, because I understand that sometimes advice comes in wrapped in another person's perspective of the experience. So we also have to be open-minded of what that looks like, so we don't think that everyone is against us, that no one's supporting us, right? So as long as we have people that genuinely love us, that uplift us and congratulate us when we have a milestone, these are things you have to pay attention to. When you say something good and positive, what's the reaction? What does this person or experience make you feel while you're with them and after you leave them? Do you feel better when you leave them, or do you feel worse? When you're around these people, do you feel like you have to dim yourself because you don't want to make them uncomfortable, because you understand that your level of confidence might offend their insecurity? So it's things like this we have to pay attention to. How do you feel around certain people, around certain experiences? Is it positive or primarily negative? Are you getting offended every time someone says any form of advice? Because maybe your level of consciousness is on a reactive, offensive, impulsive, automated process, right? And that is a you problem. Therefore, you have to take full responsibility of how you can reach a more open-mindedness and a more expansive capacity in your perception of your experience, seeing the pros and the cons, but also having discernment and the intuitive knowing that this feels like a no and this feels like a yes. Sometimes if it's not a clear yes, that means it's a no. Sometimes it's as clear and as simple as that. If it feels like a no, it is a no. If it doesn't feel like a yes, it's a no. Because a yes feels like a yes. That is exactly what I need. that is exactly what I need around me in my experience, because this is the energy I want to maintain myself in, right? But when you feel like, oh, that's off, or they're throwing my energy off, or it's misdirecting me in another place, remove yourself immediately without questioning the why behind it. Just know that a no is a no, and that's it. Because now you are starting to understand that if a person doesn't make you feel worthy and remain in the energy of being worthy, and instead they're making you feel worthless or powerless or in disbelief of yourself, then you already know that that's not the surrounding you need around you at this moment. Not until at least you master yourself to the point that you can be around any group of individuals and still remain solid in your character, right? In your knowing of self, in your confidence, in your self-belief, in your worthiness, and in your own values. If you are not able to withstand the diversity of the influences in your external reality throughout the course of those experiences, then you need to remove yourself from the experiences that take you off that course. You understand? So that is a discernment that has to be gained throughout the process, so that you know exactly where you stand throughout the process of these interactions, so that you know exactly who you need around you and who you do not. And understanding that these people don't even serve where I'm going, because their mindset is different. They're not doing nothing that I'm into. They're not going the same direction, and that's okay too. Leave them with love and grace. It doesn't even have to be an issue. It's just falling away or fizzling out because we no longer align. And that's the natural course of all life. We need to start to be okay with that as well. Doesn't matter how long you've known the person. Sometimes a person you've known for a week can do more and serve you more and place you in a position of your expression of your authentic self and make you feel so alive, as opposed to someone that you've known your whole life. So don't go by how long you've known a person or all the memories you had. Memories are supposed to be there because life is an experience worth to have, as we are here for the experience more than we are here for the connections. The connections comes from the acceptance that people are who they are. We accept them for all that they are, and each and every moment that we have with them, we are in the full embrace and being present in that moment without attachment to anything or any outcome or any expectations. And that's when life becomes more liberating, right? Because we have more flexibility as to all the possibilities that we can create. Bringing me into our conclusion. Empowering self-worth is pivotal on your journey to self-mastery. As you engage in these practices, remember your undeniable worth, and recognize your journey as an ongoing evolution towards embracing your true self.